Welcome back to the Competitive Talk. This is your host, Kyle Dangler. This podcast is presented by Life Creative Works. And today we're very fortunate to be joined by Evan Daniels, who is a part of FS1 Sports. And he currently host of the podcast for them, The Sideline Sports. And he's also the director of recruiting for Scouts.com. So we're going to be giving him a call right now. So here we go.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Evan. How are you?
I'm good, man.
Cool. Yeah. So, whenever you are ready to go, we'll just get going.
Cool. I'm ready.
Cool. Yeah. So, just talking about, you getting into the business, especially, with sports, being an analyst, that's something that, we've had, a few different guys, at a few different networks come on. So, how did you get involved? Where did your passion come from for, being an analyst? Is that something that, you planned for, or were you always just a big sports fan, kind of fell into it, after college? What led you down this path?
What's crazy is basketball has just always been something that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I loved playing. When I was young, I played all the time. That's all me and my friends did around the neighborhood was go play basketball, and I loved it. And I wasn't physically gifted enough to play basketball in college, or even. Or for my career, but I wanted to find a way where I could be around it, and that's what I kind of have done. When I was a junior and senior in high school, I started following Scout.com and Rivals.com and was reading all of those websites. And when in between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college, I met a guy named Dave Tellup, who's now with the Spurs.
Okay.
And at that time, he was in the same role that I have at 24/7. He had that job at Scout, and him and I just got close over the years. And I interned for him for all 4 years of my college. And I guess the best way to put it, man, is I just wouldn't let him get rid of me. I just kept showing up at events, and I would sleep on his floor. This is during spring and summer of my college days, and I would try to find ways on weekends to go to events, and I was just always around. And I ended up I went to Western Kentucky, and I ended up working in the basketball office my junior and senior years, and learned a lot from Darren Horn, who was the head coach there at the time. But that's really how I got started.
Yeah, awesome. Just going, what did you intern with him for? Were you kind of the guy that, was going to game scouting? Were you more of just doing online stuff, typing up, reports on different players? How did you, get started, especially with, scouting, which could be, probably hectic for you guys, having so many players and, having to, cut down the list?
When I first had met Dave and he started putting me to work, so to speak, it was a lot of just odd jobs. It was. Okay. I remember, at that time, he would do top performers every night on AAU weekends, and I remember I used to read those every day when I was in high school, and so I think one of the first tasks I had for him was just going through that story he would put up and making sure that the information that he posted in a story matched the information in our database, and going through and updating the database and adding photos. And it was a lot of work like that is how I really started. And then, obviously when I was at events, I was basically just hanging out with him and kind of learning from him.
Now, when you mean events, do you mean like games, or do you mean going to social events, with other people in the business?
Well, both, but I'm more referring to high school events in terms of like AAU tournaments, high school events, and in terms of evaluating, you learn a lot over being around the game for an extended amount of time. But from a guy like Dave, I was able to learn evaluating philosophies and different things to look for and stuff like that. In the other case where you were talking about events, I think that like any other business, the profession that I'm in is the best way to put it. It's a relationship-driven business.
Yeah.
And if building relationships, networking, it's an important part of any business. And, Dave certainly taught me a lot about that as well.
Absolutely. So, going, after college, joining, doing, the scout stuff, and now working your way up to, the director. I mean, just looking back, you mentioned before, how you used to be the one that was reading the articles and now being, in that spot. I mean, is it almost kind of surreal for you, just looking back and, seeing where you are now?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had. I mean, if Dave doesn't give me opportunity not only to be his intern, but then he hired me full time out of college.
Okay.
Everything that I have been able to accomplish, I wouldn't have been able to, or at least not in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for the opportunities, and yeah, it is a little surreal. This past year, I was lucky enough to be the sideline reporter for two Big East tournament games, and I remember, I guess it was at the beginning of the second game, just kind of like looking around Madison Square Garden and kind of thinking to myself, like, how the heck did I get here? How did this happen? Like, I grew up watching the Big East tournament.
Yeah.
And here I am, getting to be a small piece of the broadcast. Really a surreal moment, honestly, and a dream come true, really. Obviously, my path to have an opportunity to be with Fox and doing on-camera stuff started through scouting and writing and all that. But my dream when I was 8 years old was to be a Sports Center anchor.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do the broadcasting thing. That's actually what I went to school for. I was a broadcasting major. So that really was a dream come true for me.
Now, talking about, the writing side, with different, scouting reports, and then also, mentioning how you wanted to be a broadcaster, doing a little bit of that with Fox Sports. I mean, do you like the balance between, having to go back and forth where, you're not stuck, doing one specific thing, every day? I mean, do you enjoy kind of the sense of freedom of having, two different, areas of work that you do?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it allows me to scratch a couple different itches, I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I obviously have an affinity for evaluating players and watching the guys when they're sophomores and getting an opportunity to kind of see them develop from young high school players to college players to future NBA players.
Yeah.
That's fun to me. It's fun to see that type of progression. It's fun to kind of, I don't know if find is the right word, but see and evaluate these kids before they're superstars.
Yeah.
But then also, I have so I have an opportunity to evaluate and then write about them and follow their high school careers and stuff like that. But then also I have a podcast where I can do interviews and the broadcasting piece. It's all every day I wake up, the day is different. Whether there's all types of different stories. Yeah. There's all types of different work. There's always a lot going on, and the truth is, it's like I'm kind of nonstop as it is. That's just who I am. If I'm just sitting around, I get bored. So it honestly fits me in a lot of ways.
Awesome. Yeah. So speaking of your podcast that you do, the Sidelines. Which is produced by Fox Sports. Was it something that was currently going on before you got there? Was it something that you brought up or they mentioned to you? I mean, how did you get that going? Because it's interesting, with the podcast piece. It's awesome that you get to interview players and have Fox Sports backing it up.
Yeah, no, that was actually part of my deal when I went there.
Okay.
That was their idea, and it's been a lot of fun. I will say that the podcasts are. I had barely listened to podcasts until I was told I had to do one. And they're actually a lot more work than I think maybe your average person thinks.
Yeah.
And it can be fulfilling, and it can be fun. It's certainly helped me hone my interview skills. but yeah, that was something that they brought to the table, and it's been kind of fun to do.
Now, do you interview, high school players, college players, a mixture? Just what kind of, guests do you get on?
I really had a mixture, honestly. I don't think I don't know that I've done any high school players. It's mainly been head coaches. It's been guys that are going in the draft. We usually do some around the draft. Like I had Darius Garland this year.
Okay.
I've had a bunch of guys. In terms of head coaches, I've had a pretty good group of guys. Coach K's done it a couple times. Roy Williams has done it. Maybe the most obscure guess would probably be Aaron Rodgers.
Wow. All right.
That was probably my favorite one that I've done. He gave me 40 minutes.
Wow.
And it was a pretty cool story. Just kind of hearing him talk about how he was overlooked and coming out of high school, and
Absolutely.
It was really, we talked a lot about the development piece and why people missed on him coming out of college. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so, just, bringing up the fact that, some guys, in any sport really, get overlooked. I mean, being a scout now and, building up your credibility over the years, I mean, how did you, see yourself, evaluating players, when you first started to now? I mean, have you seen any adjustments? I mean, just knowing and seeing more players, I mean, has it helped you?
100%. I mean, perspective is a big factor in this, and learning from your mistakes. And the truth is from an evaluating standpoint, it's a ranking the top. It started out as the top 100 at 24/7 Sports. We go 247. In a lot of ways, ranking players across the nation is an impossible task. There's always going to be misses. Everyone remembers your misses. I remember my hits, but nobody else does. But it can be fun too. But you certainly learn a lot about. You learn from your mistakes, and everybody has a little bit of a different evaluation philosophy. I think everything starts with the physical gifts. If you look around the NBA, there's very few guys that don't look the part.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the other stuff isn't extremely important, because it is. Whether it be feel for the game or specific skills per position. I think one of the hardest parts to evaluate is the kids' mental makeup and their work ethic. That's not always the easiest part to be able to figure out when they're in high school. But yeah, you certainly learn over time. What works and what doesn't in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you mentioned the mental piece. I'm just curious. Do you get enough time to see them off the court as much to evaluate their off the court skills, so to speak? Just with their teammates and stuff, or is it more focused just on the court skills that you're able to see?
The off the court stuff is a lot harder, especially with the kids in high school, and it's time can be a factor too. It's not possible to call around for a background check on every single guy like maybe an NBA team would. There's obviously certain scenarios that I'm going to know better than others just based on contacts and people that tell you stuff.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it too is just trying to learn as much as you can about a prospect, and not only their game but who they are as a person.
Yeah, so now being, the director of basketball recruiting at Scout.com, are you someone who, travels around to, the big tournaments to, evaluate players? Do you look more at film now? Or do you have other people go and, give you their reports, and then, you kind of take it from there? How do you, be able to come up with the list and, evaluate, all these players around the country?
Well, we have a team at 24/7 Sports that it's not, you can't do it alone. And there's a group of guys that helps come up with this list. Brian Snow, Josh Gershon, and Jerry Meyer are the guys that are over at 24/7 Sports with me. And then I also have another set of eyes, a guy that has been working for me over the last couple of years, Travis Branham. That's been a help too. But just having those guys and those eyes and ears out and about is extremely helpful. Josh Gershon knows the West Coast better than anyone, and he eats, sleeps, and breathes evaluating basketball. Brian Snow's based in the Midwest and knows that area pretty well. So you can't come up with a list like that on your own. It's already hard enough, and you got to have help.
Now, just, going, throughout the list, over the years, you mentioned before, you've had some hits and, some misses. I'm just curious, anyone you want to share, just with the hit or the miss side?
Oh, that's a great one. I think I don't know that I kind of call it a half hit. There are guys that I saw earlier, Mo Bamba, everybody was going to figure out.
Okay.
I think I was the first person to ever write about him, which was kind of cool. I got a tip from a buddy and went out and watched him, and this was when he was a sophomore, and it was before he hit the national scene.
Yeah.
You ended up ranking Donovan Mitchell in the top. I think I had him 16, or we had him 16 or 17. And obviously he's taken off even further, and we're going to look back, and he will have been probably a top 5 player in that class. But at that time, that was a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah.
Misses. I think the biggest one that probably sticks out is putting Scalabissiere above Ben Simmons.
Okay.
I think most people, if you were at Nike Hoop Summit, you probably saw the same thing that I did, and then it just hasn't translated the way that we thought. And obviously, Ben Simmons is better than I realized in high school. Yeah. I could go on and on though. There's tons that go on both sides.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, just curious, with Ben Simmons, something that, everyone sees now, especially in the NBA, is, his inability to, hit mid-range to, 3-point shots. Is that something that you saw? Did you see anything back then, that, now, looking at him now, you can see the progression and that, specific, skill that he maybe didn't have back in high school?
Well, the truth is he's grown some.
Okay.
But he always had the feel and the passing ability. I think part of what gets me slipped up on Ben is he was different than any players we've seen in the past in terms of just being that size and being able to play with the ball in his hands and the court vision, but then not being able to shoot, which he still can. And obviously that does limit him some. But he was. I think in his case, sometimes I was focused a little more on what he couldn't do rather than what he can. Because what he can do, he does at an elite level.
Yeah. So just talking, outside of being at Scout, more with the Fox side of things, especially you mentioned before, at the Big East. When do you kind of roll around to going from scouting to more focusing on the Big East or even really the the NCAA season and looking more at the college side of things rather than the high school side?
The truth is they're both going on at the same time.
Okay.
And so I kind of have to split those duties, and that's why during the college season things ramp up for me. I really try the last 2 weeks of November, and then at least the first 3 weeks of December, sometimes the whole month, to really get out and see as much as I can on the high school landscape, because that's when a lot of the showcases are. That's when a lot of the multi-team tournaments are through the holidays. So I try to get out and see as much as I possibly can then, and because then the Big East show that I'm a part of inside the Big East usually starts the last week of December.
Okay.
So I'll have that every week starting then. So I really try to see as much high school as I can in November and December. But then also, I always hit Hoop Hall Classic, which is one of the best high school tournaments of the year, in January. I usually try to hit another one. February, even though it is still the high school season, things slow down a little because there's not those big showcase events. High school, you try to be cost effective and go places where you can see 16, 20 teams in one setting. Yeah. Where in February your gear shifts more towards the upcoming NCAA tournament and college basketball and all that. But the truth is, man, it's a year-round deal, and not only from scouting and evaluating, but also from a reporting standpoint. because once March gets here, it's the NCAA tournament, and as soon as while it's going on, you're dealing with kids transferring and coaching movements and the coaching carousel, and then kids going pro. So, and then that bleeds right into AAU season and stuff like that. So it's honestly really never ending. The period of year where I do get a break is right now. Really, September. When I say a break from traveling, there's still a lot going on, but just being home and off the road is really what I consider a break.
Awesome, yeah. So just something that I was curious about. Even before we got you on the show today was talking about having the list with 24/7 Sports. Just going through that, having the power to, shift, players' rankings and, having the ability to, have everyone, throughout the country, look at your list, having kids, in class, even in high school, I know from firsthand experience, going through the list, seeing where they are or, where even, their friends are, just looking at, the top guys. I mean, is it kind of, weird in the sense that, you can shift someone's, either scouting report or just kind of where they end up in college based on your list?
I mean, I guess the way you described it sounds like a lot of pressure. It's a unique position, and I told you off the top that one of the things that I like about my job is watching the progression of players and watching them reach their dreams in terms of their progression, and some of them being lucky enough to turn into NBA players. There's the flip side where you can never really make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And every time we put out a list, my phone blows up with texts and calls. Well, why didn't you have this guy higher? Why didn't you have him there? I can't believe you ranked me here. And the truth is, if you're not number one, you're not happy.
Yeah.
So that part you just kind of have to shrug off. But I mean, it's part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, so how do you deal with the criticism, so to speak? I mean, are you someone who explains it, or you just kind of brush it off, or are you how do you go through the process of dealing with people and the critics out there judging your own personal list?
Well, I mean, I try to be honest or I am as honest as possible. If you reach out to me about your ranking, or a parent does, or AAU coach, if you were going to reach out, then I'm going to give you my opinion, and I'm going to be as upfront and honest as possible. There's no point in trying to shake around it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take. And in terms of public criticism, that is what it is. That's always going to happen. That's kind of in some ways the world, the social media world that we live in. I think my track record over the last 12 years is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have my misses, certainly.
Yeah, you're human.
But
yeah.
we all do.
Yeah. Yeah, so, getting off the record, with specifically, the high school stuff, I just wanted to, ask you, I know you're a part of, the Inside the Big East show at Fox Sports, just, being in the Big East, as students there, this podcast, at Seton Hall, something I wanted to ask you personally was just, with Seton Hall, getting Miles Powell back, I mean, how much does that impact, your opinion of the Pirates, going into, Big East play and then, even further, hopefully, into the NCAA tournament?
Well, getting Miles Powell back was huge. That was as big of a returner as there was in the country. Miles Powell is that good, but he also means that much to that team, and I think that's an important part of this. I mean, Miles Powell, with the way that he can score the basketball, is really a game changer for Seton Hall, and like I said, he is that important to that team and to Kevin Willard. So I think I think with him back, with Miles Cale back, with Quincy McKnight, Sandro, and then the kid that was sitting out,
Ike.
Yeah. Ike. I'm sorry, I butchered his name, which I shouldn't have done because I've been watching him since he was a sophomore in high school. But I think he's going to be a big factor for them. And from talking to their staff last year, just in workouts and and practice and stuff, he has a big impact on the defensive end. And he was one of the best shot blockers in the country when he was in high school. And obviously it didn't work out at his first stop, but he changes the game when he's on the floor just because of his pure size, length, and ability to protect the rim. So I think he's going to be a big help for them too.
Yeah, so, talking, about the Big East specifically, we just mentioned Seton Hall, and, they're last year, obviously they had some very high ups and, some downs, especially losing to DePaul twice last year, on the home side and the road side. I mean, do you think, if they play up to their potential, possibly, Pirate fans can see them, going, far in the tournament, which is unlikely, hasn't been seen in, probably since the late 1990s?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have an opportunity to have a very good year. And it's not just Obiagu that's going to give them a spark this year in terms of being a newcomer. I think Tyrese Samuel can step in and help them. And I haven't done my preseason Big East standings yet, but I can't imagine that they would. I can't imagine I'd have them lower than 2 or 3, just based on what they have coming back. And obviously Miles Powell should be the favorite to win the Big East Player of the Year. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a good opportunity for Kevin Willard and his team. And also, this is a little off topic, but Kevin has done such a tremendous job.
Absolutely, yeah.
At Seton Hall, and him getting Powell back is just a big deal for what they can hope to accomplish this season.
Yeah, so just getting off the Seton Hall aspect, just going back to your high school scouting, just one player I wanted to ask you, before we kind of wrap up things is still in the Big East, with Brian Antoine. I don't know if you ever had a chance, see him live or anything, about that, but him going to Villanova, definitely one of the highest prospects, Villanova's ever gotten, and I only personally got to see him on TV, at one of I think it was Hoop Hall. The showcase. So, do you have any, opinion on him? I mean, how good do you think he can be, especially, playing in the Big East?
Yeah, I saw Brian play quite a bit. I mean, I think I probably saw him when he was a freshman or at the latest a sophomore in high school. So I watched him pretty extensively, and he finished among our top 20 players in the 2019 class. He's got good size for an off guard. He's a very good leaper, athlete. He's very fast with the ball. I think he's got a lot of upside as a defender. He's been a little streaky over the years from a shooting standpoint, but I think he has a lot of potential to be a good shooter. He's very good in transition. I think he'll be one of the more impactful freshmen in the league. I think he's that good.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we just wanted to ask you, one final question, just, it's an opinion question, just for, we try to do this with everyone that, comes on the show.
Yeah.
Just, talking about, being a reporter, analyst, being all over the place, high school, college. Is there anything or one thing or maybe 2 things that stick out to you personally, that, looking back, one of your biggest accomplishments or, one of the biggest, things or, moments in your career that, you can look back on and think about now?
That's a great question. There's a couple things that stick out in my mind. There's probably a couple stories that I've broken that stick out in my mind. But I think maybe what I was talking about earlier with having the opportunity to be a part of the Fox broadcast for Big East tournament last year, it probably sticks out the most. I said that was kind of a dream come true.
Yeah.
And there's really no doubt about it. It was. So that was really cool. But I'll be honest, I'm proud of a lot of things that I've been able to accomplish. Both at 24/7 Sports and at Fox. It's been fun. This is what I love to do.
Yeah.
And I love to be in the gym. I love the relationship side of it and meeting new people all the time. And it's a lot of fun for me. If I won the lottery and money wasn't an object, I wouldn't retire. I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing now. Maybe there's certain things certain aspects I would scale back, but no, this is what I love to do. So that's a hard question, a good question, but I would say that there's quite a few things that I'm proud of, but probably that doing the Big East tournament was just a lot of fun, and and pretty surreal.
Awesome, yeah. So, we just wanted to, it was awesome, hear some of the, stories that you've broken and, just, some of the, experiences you've had with scouting, being on the air, analyzing players. So, we just wanted to, thank you for coming on. I know you're busy, especially, with the season coming right around the corner, especially, for college. So, just, thanks for coming on. Hope to talk to you soon. And, we can't wait to, see, some of the Big East, reports you do and also, the high school side of things.
Yeah, no problem, Kyle. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it and enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, best of luck to you, and hope to see some new stuff soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too, Kyle.
Bye. Yeah, so that was Evan Daniels from Fox Sports and 24/7 Sports. So thanks for coming on. It was awesome to have him on. Someone that knows a lot about the Big East, and then also on the other side of things, high school, just being the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. It's pretty cool to get to talk to him about different varieties of high school, college, and some of the scouting stuff that he's done, and how he's progressing as evaluating players, and then also some of the cool stories that he's broken on the side of things, and some of the hits that he's had, like Donovan Mitchell he mentioned before. So thanks for listening to us, and have a good rest of your day.